Welcome back, Red Spotters. This is the Red Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco, back with our weekly recaps of the Disney Plus Marvel Studios series, Hawkeye, starring Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop and Clint Barton, the two Hawkeyes, respectively. Last week we discussed the first two episodes that were dropped for its debut on the service, and this week we are back to discuss fully our initial impressions first and foremost, non-spoilery, and then we'll get into the full recap as it happened in real time, the episode 3 Echoes. All of that here on Red Spotlight number 361. Alright, so look, before we get to Hawkeye, there's a couple of things here first and foremost, related to Marvel. And that would be Spider-Man tickets went on sale this just a couple of days ago, what they called Spider Monday, which was their spin on Cyber Monday. And so tickets actually went on sale at midnight Monday, so at that point either most people you'd think would be asleep. But it's interesting because I was the one that seemingly called into question whether or not we should do this. And what I mean by that is I was asking our group. Of course, it didn't include you or Alexis because you don't live with it. You don't live in our area, so you guys would do your own situation. But for those of us who go see movies together, that would include Kyle and Peter. I was wondering if it would be pertinent of us to go ahead and get tickets as soon as possible. And I believe I was met with, there's no need for that, or no response whatsoever. And then, while I am recording a podcast with Peter, our review of Encanto and other films, I take a look at the chat and there's some activity happening, and it turns out Kyle reached out saying that he is second guessing not getting tickets immediately when they go on sale. And then I see all of these messages of sites crashing and all the usual. I mean, we've seen this happen before, I believe, with The Force Awakens and with Endgame, when all of the ticket sites just completely crash because everybody is trying to get their golden ticket to see it on opening night. So for me, this is kind of a strange situation because, look, I feel like everybody knows exactly what this movie is going to be, and for the masses, clearly, that is overwhelmingly exciting and a must-see event. For me, this is me, and this is sad to say, but I'm just walking in knowing I'm going to get just another Marvel movie. And hey, Marvel movies are fun. At least the good ones are. Even Shang-Chi was very fun. But I, unlike most, have, had a difficult time rewatching the whole thing afterward because it was just that. It was fun and not more to it. And so I'm walking in with the mind of very clearly, now I am very much open to this being a surprise, but I know all of the spoilers already because we read the leaks and everything. And I know on principle and what's going to happen, it just seems like this wasn't the movie that I would have wanted them to focus on Peter Parker. Maybe in some weird way, as they keep stressing, or what I keep hearing from certain outlets, this will end up being a Peter Parker story, but it will end up being a Peter Parker story. I mean, Tom Holland Peter Parker, with all of the other Peter Parkers and all the other villains involved. And so it's all, again, as you've seen the TV spots lately and the trailers, it's all mask off. That initial act of him, and his identity being revealed basically is an excuse to unleash the multiverse. So I go in with this film with the expectation that I'll have a good time, but I don't expect to love it. On the level of excitement where I had with The Force Awakens and with Endgame, where I had a pretty good suspicion that I would love it. And guess what? I loved both of those films. So for me, this is very different because I don't think this is nearly on the same scale, but clearly that's not how most people feel because of the whole multiverse element that will bring back the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man universes. So for me, it wasn't like I wasn't like, refreshing, or like on bated breath with getting these tickets. I was checking them intermittently and see if I was able to get anything, and just out of curiosity. So I was using Fandango, and I was using Cinemark, and the apps weren't working. So what I did was I went on my laptop, and I was able to purchase my tickets at Cinemark after a good, maybe close to 2 hours. I wasn't trying for 2 hours, but I kept checking them back and forth to see if anything had loaded. First of all, for the first hour and a half, nothing would load. It would just crash, or it would take a long time, or nothing would really compute. But when I got on to the screening that we wanted, which was 7:35, I looked at it, and it was getting close to all of the good seats being gone. And that's in our small town area. And as we speak, and out of curiosity, I've been checking out the tickets. As we speak, again, in our small town area, where, we're in the vicinity of high metropolitan areas, which include Mexicali in Mexico, or San Diego, or Yuma, San Bernardino, Las Vegas. We're literally in the middle of all that. But again, we're Arrakis, or we're Tatooine. That's kind of where we're at. Just keeping in mind the environment and how our area is. At this moment for opening night, they've opened most of the theaters at our Cinemark for Spider-Man No Way Home. And I would say like 96 to 98% of all the good seats for that night are just about done, as if they're gone. And here's where it gets interesting. And I guess this was Sony's decision, because this also threw me off. Apparently, their Thursday night previews are not starting off at 7 or 6 p.m. They're starting off at 3. So there are people who are going to be able to watch this at 3 p.m. As they're like, that's when the first official showtimes are, not just here, but it seemingly seems all over the country. So at 3 p.m. So, and those are, for the most part, gone. The only way at this point, from what I've seen, where you'll have a good chance of finding some seats, as in like if you're in a group or everything, or just at all, would be down in front, as they say. The seats that nobody wants. Because if you sit directly at the front, you're going to be, how shall we put this? It almost feels like you're being crushed a little bit. Like it's not comfortable watching a movie at the front row, because you have to position your head upwards the entire time, and it's not really comfortable on your neck. The last movie I think I saw, which is not ironic, but I think it's kind of interesting, because that ended up being one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie, literally. But that was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Kyle and I walked in thinking, at the time, you have to keep in mind, it's Captain America. He's not, at that point, everybody's favorite Avenger, And we walk in, and it's like, holy fuck, this place is packed. And so we find seats at the front, and we're watching it like, our heads tilted upward the entire time, our necks breaking. But hell, we had an amazing time, because that's an amazing movie. And that was the beginning of, I'd say, the ascendancy of Captain America's popularity. Although, it's interesting. I know that he didn't get much to do characterization-wise in Joss Whedon's Avengers, but it's curious to see how Captain America, the first Avenger, is still regarded by a lot of people as some of the lesser Marvel films, which, of course, I disagree with completely. I think you do as well. You have it as, I think, in your very top, or at the very top of the very top half of the MCU.
Yeah, it's like top 5.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting how that film was kind of like treated as a so-so middling movie. I don't necessarily understand why. I never really did. But yeah, that's interesting. It has, I feel, gotten its due among some circles as the years have gone by. And hell, just now occurring to me, the film's 10 years old.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
2011. That and Thor turned 10 years old this year in 2021.
Dang. How old is that?
We'll take away 10 years. What, 14? 15?
14, yeah. Yeah. No, I think the last movie where I sat like super close to the front was actually Avengers Endgame, but I had already seen it by then, so it didn't really bother me much.
Right.
And I wasn't too far in the front either way.
Mm-hmm. I think it just depends on the suite. You go ahead.
I just remember the one before that actually was Avengers Infinity War, and that one was like the first time I saw it. Yeah, and I mean it didn't for me. It doesn't bother me as much as you guys.
Right,
it's totally fine. But like the thing that just kind of like made it okay was everyone's reaction.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, it was just all cheers and cheers, so it made it fun.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah, I guess I want to try. I do like going to the movies by myself, but I haven't been able to do that lately. But we always end up sitting toward the back, and that does seem to be everybody's preferred way of seeing it. But I don't know, sometimes seeing it from different points in the theater can be different. But yeah, did you guys... Oh, I should say, I was able to get tickets. I don't know if I mentioned that before. But I was able to get tickets for 7:35 p.m. on Thursday. We will have a Red Spotlight booth out there for those that want to come out, for a meet and greet. I'm kidding, of course, that's not going to happen. Oh yeah, we're going to have our review. Oh, fuck that, we're not going to have a review. If we had that, I remember this one stand-up they had years and years ago. There was this AMC Movie Talk when they were AMC before. I mean, they were AMC Movie Talk at that time, but then they became Collider Movie Talk. But it was, I think, John Campea, John Schnepp, Dennis Zen, and I think even Amy Rose or Miri, I can't remember. It was that original group. And they, since they were affiliated with AMC, they were able to do their live reactions to the film Thor: The Dark World outside of the movie theater as people were going in and walking out. Now, remember, at the time, and I remember this because everybody was, for the most part, excited about this movie and kind of liking it. I remember the first month, the first initial reactions of Thor: The Dark World were very, very good. As it's aged throughout the years, it took relatively little time for it to become the worst or one of the worst MCU films ever made. But at the time, it got a lot of excitement. I remember watching it with Kyle and our friend Leslie, and we were like, this is so much fun, this is hilarious, this was good. But then, that was me back in 2013, and now I've seen so many more movies and so many different kinds of movies. It kind of like, well, yeah, this wasn't good all. That wasn't all that great, and there were problems here and there. But I imagine, if we did something like that on Red Spotlight, we had our team out there and we did our review, at a stand-up right in front of Cinemark. I can't imagine, particularly for No Way Home, our reactions would be very popular. We might even get some tomatoes thrown in our direction if we... because I do at the moment would think that there would be some pretty negative things to say about the film. But then you know what? These days, I don't know about Peter. He's been really on a roll with certain movies that you'd think he would hate, but it turns out he actually quite liked. Encanto and Eternals definitely, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. That one particularly surprised me because I would think that would be a film, as he said himself on paper, is everything he hates. So there is that. Also, I should have mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Did you get your tickets, or what are you guys planning on doing for Spider-Man?
I mean, chances are we're just gonna watch it over the weekend. We're not gonna watch it first day. So I don't think we have much to worry about.
You guys don't do opening days, do you? You really can't
anymore. I mean, I would if I get those Thursdays off.
Right.
I think I would be okay with going pretty late. But yeah, it's just I work nights, so can't really do much.
Okay. So that's December 16th. I should have said at the top, but I didn't want to, bring too much attention to it. I know that we're recording this today on today's Thursday, December 2nd. Yeah, if I sound a little bit tired or different today, which I'm not sure if I do, but I think I may sound that way. And I love how David was like, "Were you being serious when you texted that you had surgery?" No, I literally just had surgery. Like not even 24 hours ago. I had to go into the hospital because I was suffering from what they call acute appendicitis. I had a pain on my lower right side for since mid Monday, and it kept worsening and worsening. I was actually at work yesterday, and it was just I think the word that keeps coming across my mind is debilitating. I literally was walking like an old man. Like I felt like I needed a cane, like with how hunched over I was and everything. It's a good thing I was able to drive, but yeah, it was. I would say I got there just in time before the pain got worse, because they treated me to 2 rounds of morphine. But that wasn't enough to take the pain away fully, so that thing needed to come out. So they took it out, and I was discharged that night, and here I am, and here we are. So yeah, that was kind of scary, but the pain's gone, so I'm happy with that. So just wanted to put that out there, full disclosure. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was my 24 hours. How was your 24 hours, Dave?
I just had class.
Yeah.
Not much to say.
Yeah, meanwhile it was cut open. Anyway, we talk about para-analytics quite a bit here. And I just wanted to put this in the context of like this whole thing here. Arcane is a series that at some point we are going to review. I don't know what that's going to look like. I need to watch the season first and foremost, but I've been continually delayed. I was going to start watching it Monday, but then of course appendicitis got in the way. So that happened. So Arcane apparently is very popular, not just in the US, but I saw that bit. I think Netflix even had the show as the #1 show on their service in the world. And Para-Analytics also backed that up as well, as currently the most in demand or most popular show around the world. And that is very good, and that is very exciting, and that's all for Arcane and for its fans. And it's definitely all in service of that show having a long future ahead of itself, considering how popular it is. I do wonder why Invincible didn't hit as big as that, because I thought Invincible was an excellent series.
Could be the service.
Amazon Prime. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a more limited. Well, Amazon Prime actually, I think, has the second largest subscribers in the world, but here's the thing. It's Amazon Prime, and then there's Prime Video. Your Prime Video is included with your membership to Amazon Prime, so most of those people, you could probably argue, only use Amazon Prime for purchases and for mail delivery purposes, not so much for Prime Video.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an asterisk you have to put in there. But still, yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious for that. But the bigger point that I wanted to say was, it's funny how I continue to see these media personalities just pull out Para-Analytics when it, I think, serves... I'm not sure if they view it as a narrative. I think it just kind of happens because they don't genuinely think that... again, it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You knew that was going to go that direction. They don't necessarily view themselves as having anything to do with that show in terms of building a narrative against it. So when people hear me say that, oh, it's to serve their narrative, I don't believe they view it that way, nor do I believe that is their intent. But because of these people being media personalities and having have such a big microphone, they end up creating narratives. And I think at some point you have to be cognizant of that. If you're a media personality, right? So it's not me like accusing these people of having a grand conspiracy. But for me, as a fan of the show and as one that does follow new reports of continued success that we've discussed on here, it is quite interesting to me whenever those reports end up coming out, they're not at all mentioned or discussed, and in some points even dismissed. But when it comes to even that same outlet, FAIRE Analytics, having numbers or figures, if you will, for other properties, then they use those numbers to say, hey, look at how popular this is. And how do we know this is popular? Look at what these people are saying. So that's really all it is, right? So earlier this year, FAIRE Analytics had a different report. In 2018, we had mentioned they had done a study that showed that S.H.I.E.L.D. was the most in-demand Marvel show around the world. 2018, very different. This is well before the Disney Plus TV shows. And recall that when that report was brought up, particularly Campia, who didn't even have it as a story, he was asked on a super chat and dismissed it, saying, I don't believe it. And then Dan Murrell also called into question the validity of these numbers from FAIRE Analytics. So I'm just putting that out there because why on earth would S.H.I.E.L.D. be that popular when in their own circles, in their own anecdotal evidence, it isn't? So there's that. FAIRE earlier this year, I think it was in October or late September, they released another study. And this was particularly with the United States. Now, this is a region where the show is perhaps among the least popular regions, is the least popular in the world. And it ended up being that for the first time, it is associated as one of the more popular ones. Certainly not anywhere near the top. But what was impressive in what FAIRE, and I believe we discussed this at some point, or maybe I missed it entirely. No, I'm sure we did. FAIRE had said that for the first time, S.H.I.E.L.D. had, basically reached the status of popularity, popular enough that even after over a year that it finished its run, it was still, getting mentioned and getting seen and everything. Now, this is the asterisk. So, at no point what FAIRE does is they put in viewership numbers mixed with social media reactions and other indications to determine a show's overall popularity. And that is very different than just straight out viewership numbers. So at no point will I say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was seen by more people than What If in just straight viewership numbers, because obviously at that point What If was very new. Most people were watching that. S.H.I.E.L.D. had been over for about a year or so. What FAIRE said so with FAIRE, they have viewership, but they include all the other metrics in there for their own methodology. And what they had computed was that S.H.I.E.L.D. during the run of What If was much more talked about and much more popular than What If. Now, why was that not at all mentioned or discussed? I mean, I guess you could say that FAIRE is still in the question, but remember just a few months back when FAIRE said WandaVision was the most popular show in the world, and it was made, and some of these personalities that I mentioned did include them as stories. So what is it then? The S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff happens, no one talks about it, but then just the other day, Grace Randolph talked about that report from FAIRE about Arcane in her Movie Math video. Okay. Now, I know you notice I threw out several different names and several different people in this industry that cover and are basically the film media. And so that's my thing. It's why is it repeatedly now we have several examples of it, particularly with this analytics firm FAIRE. When they have new reports on shows, you hear about it when they talk about WandaVision. You hear about it when they talk about Arcane. But every single time it has the name Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on there, it just goes completely ignored. So, that to me is just yet another example of a narrative by not really building a narrative. They don't talk about it, they don't acknowledge it, and so nobody knows. And it's not mentioned or discussed. Also, earlier this year, how many times was S.H.I.E.L.D. in the top 10 of Disney Plus in not only different regions, but then also the world? How many times did it like top every other show on every single Latin American country in the world on Disney Plus? S.H.I.E.L.D. was at the top or near the top. So my point there being is, why don't you hear about that? Peter honestly feels a little annoyed when I bring this stuff up, and I'm sure a lot of people do. But I'm not one to let these kind of things go, because I just feel like it's weird, right? Like, I know that this is a show that is over, but like it's still making headlines, and it says something that Para Analytics is still conducting studies on this. It says something that this show is, still dropping on certain regions of the world on Disney Plus, and it's still, with high success value. I feel that that's a story. I feel like we should talk about that, but it's not. So, David, why do you think this never comes up among the press or the media?
I have no idea. Like, I just don't understand the hate for the show. Like, I mean, it's a good show.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't understand. I think they just kind of like, maybe they just started this whole thing of, whatever's in the MCU is always the best. Anything else is just blech. I don't know. And I think that's kind of why Venom kind of gets a lot of love. The first one I was just like, oh, it was fun. But I think they knew that somehow Sony was going to bring it to the MCU. So then they were just like, this is great. But then, then you get Morpheus, and kind of people are like, what the fuck is this?
You mean Mobius?
Morpheus. Mobius.
Wait, it's Mobius, right? Not Morpheus. I don't remember.
Oh, fuck, I don't remember. The vampire one with Jared Leto.
Yeah.
That one, people are just kind of like confused. Like, is this in the MCU? Is this in the Venom universe? Like, what the fuck is going on here? And so, I feel like not many people are talking about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't have Twitter, so I can't really say for sure if people are talking about it.
Is there a reason you don't have Twitter, or you just don't feel like going on it?
I really don't care about social media much.
Okay.
Growing up, my sister was the one that like had MySpace first, and me, I just kept looking at it like, what the fuck is this? And then I got forced into getting an Instagram and a Facebook.
Well, I do appreciate your Instagram. Check out David's sketches. Has some amazing photos on there. A photo-esque, literally, Instagram on there. For me, I don't necessarily use Twitter to engage with like people in my own space. I use it to engage with people who I would not necessarily have, like, I don't know, conversations with. Like, for example, I've conversed with some people who I would watch on YouTube, like Ian Wilmot from the Fresh Bake channel. I've interacted with Adam Hlavak or Hector from the Heroes Reforged podcast. And even Darren Jacobs, I hope have liked some of the stuff that I've said. So yeah, I mean, or Fantastic Geek podcast. I have, and I appreciate those interactions. But for me, why I have it is because it's the fastest way. There is no, I would say, equivalent than Twitter, than getting your news and getting the stories and everything. So that's why I like it. And there's a lot of content and a lot of, and film Twitter, for all of the crap that comes out of it, there are some pretty like good like takes and essays and like takes, points of view out there that remind you of why you like certain things in the first place. But yeah, that's just something that I myself noticed. It's like, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Basically, it's the situation with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We'll see if that ever changes. All right, so let's talk about Hawkeye's numbers. And this is interesting, and some people were actually wondering if maybe it wasn't the best choice to drop 2 episodes of Hawkeye, especially on a holiday weekend like Thanksgiving. So the headline here from Deadline is Hawkeye viewership is 40% behind Loki's premiere. Now this is in Samba measured Disney Plus homes. So this is interesting, right? So when you see Samba TV, and when you see like we've used Samba TV in the past, in particular with like seeing how many people saw something on HBO Max when a new movie debuted on there. Here's something you got to know about that. So like it said, 1.5 million or less than a million. Samba TV's sample, like a lot of polls, are quite small. So they, for example, with HBO Max, they got like 3 million people, and of those 3 million, then they like basically poll which ones saw Hawkeye. Well, I don't know how they're even able to do that, but they do it. And so it's not an exact, I don't know. I guess to an extent it is an exact science, but you also have to keep in mind that they have a relatively small pool of people from which they get this from. So let me read this to you. The first episode of Marvel's Hawkeye on Disney Plus drew 1.5 million U.S. households over the Wednesday-Sunday holiday stretch, while 1.3 million stuck around and watched the second episode. This is according to the latest streaming viewership stats from Samba TV, which measures 3 million U.S. households and what they watch on streaming over a 5-minute increment. That's the other asterisk. If you watch it for 5 minutes at least, that counts as a view. So, yeah. That first episode number for Hawkeye trails the 5-day U.S. household viewership figure for the Disney Plus Marvel's Loki, which was watched by 2.5 million homes over the June 9th, 13th period by 40%. Hawkeye's first episode premiere also ranks behind Loki's finale, which pulled in 1.9 million homes over 5 days per Samba TV. Hawkeye's 5-day is also behind the 3-day premieres of Disney Plus's Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. So that is interesting, although I wouldn't say necessarily surprising because of all of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. I think it was pretty evident Hawkeye was probably on the bottom end of things people were excited for. Like in that, and I think the show even knows that as we discuss it. It's like Hawkeye, in all honesty, is among the least popular characters because they never done much with him. And he's also a guy with a bow and arrow. So if there was any kind of excitement for this show, it was because it was going to debut Kate Bishop, maybe more so than, bring back Clint Barton. But certainly, as we saw, Clint Barton is nowhere near as popular as Loki or Wanda, Vision, and definitely Sam and Bucky. And I feel like that's kind of the reason why you see this, I guess, gap. But then also, and I don't know, to me, like, the holiday stretch on Thanksgiving, I would say is a good time to drop it. Maybe they should have just dropped the one episode, but it's interesting. What I saw was interesting that the viewership kind of dropped from episode 1 to episode 2, so I don't know what that means. It is weird. You think it would be the other way around. So yeah, that's interesting. Do you have anything to say about these numbers?
No, I mean, like I said, Hawkeye is the least favorite character among these new shows.
He was always the least favorite Avenger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that not many people watch it. I know, but for the ones that did, I think it was mainly for what's her character?
Kate Bishop.
Yeah, got it. It was mainly for her. I feel like she might be just a bit more popular than Hawkeye, even in the comics. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, those numbers make sense. I mean, whatever the third episode is, if it's higher, again, makes sense. Oh, no, so you mentioned that it was the holidays, so maybe something that made people just didn't really think to watch it till after.
Okay. Before we go into the episode itself, there was actually something pretty interesting I wanted to share with you. So AV Club, I know based on the rankings, you and I will have some disagreements on this, but AV Club actually compiled a ranked list of every Marvel TV show that includes the entertainment series. Marvel Entertainment, I should say. A heroic countdown of all 19 Marvel shows, including Loki, S.H.I.E.L.D., and even Iron Fist, from worst to best. And I'm going to read this off to you real quick. Some of these shows are not at all affiliated with the MCU, even more so than the divide of Marvel Entertainment or Marvel Studios. But you do recall there were shows that Marvel Entertainment produced that were never established as having any kind of affiliation with that universe. It was obviously in a separate universe. So, at number 19 is Hellstrom, which nobody saw Hellstrom. Who saw Hellstrom? Like,
nobody.
No one saw Hellstrom, and what was really sad about that show is that they had to write some stuff out to, like, because Hellstrom was made with the point of it being an MCU affiliated show, but no, I guess Kevin Feige told them, look, you're only getting one season and you're going to get canceled, but even this, just take out all the MCU references. Nope, you're not. And nobody saw it.
Dang.
Yeah. No, Kevin Feige's kind of brutal. I mean, he did cancel the Ghost Rider show that was supposed to be on this list.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's number 19. Number 18, Marvel's Inhumans. Hellstrom, maybe because nobody saw it, but how Inhumans is not on the bottom of this list, I don't know. I just want to recap here. I love this description. Even if Marvel's Inhumans doesn't go down in history as the crappiest show the studio has ever attempted, if narrowly finished in front of Hellstrom on this list, the series will almost certainly claim the crown as the ugliest. It's a wonder Marvel and ABC even let it get out the door, looking like it did. The tale of an enhanced abilities royal family living on the moon and then banished to Hawaii during a coup, where they're forced to find each other and figure out a way home, is so garish and shoddy looking, it's more likely to be mistaken for a bargain bin sci-fi cheapie than an effects-heavy would-be blockbuster from one of the most successful studios on the planet. From the eye-rolling dialogue to the DOA action scenes, Inhumans fails on all levels. When the teleporting dog is the most relatable character on your show, you know you've done something wrong. Yeah. If you want to hear our thoughts on Inhumans, well, go back to the 2017 Red Spotlight feed. That was something. Number 17, The Gifted. Again, this is one of those that wasn't an MCU affiliated show, but on Marvel Entertainment. Did you ever watch The Gifted?
I did. I never finished it though. It had some really interesting stuff, but just nothing to really grab my attention.
Okay. Didn't they have like 2 seasons?
Yeah, 2 seasons. I think I only watched.
It was an X-Men show, wasn't it?
Yeah, they had the mutants and all that, but none of the like X-Men characters.
That's interesting. I'm just looking at a photo of it. Do you know Amy Acker? She was on that show. Amy Acker was also, she played a character in season 1 of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was Coulson's cellist.
Huh.
Which is interesting. That's the same actress.
Okay.
Number 16, Marvel's Iron Fist. I mean,
I think I would put Iron Fist beneath
The Gifted.
Oh, I don't know. I actually kind of enjoyed the second season of Iron Fist.
Sure. The thing with some of these shows is the seasons aren't that consistent. And we'll see, right? We've talked about that. Some are great and some are bad in just some show. In one show. It says here, to be fair, Iron Fist did get significantly better in its second season, where it more openly embraced the fact that Finn Jones' Danny Rand is kind of a dweeb, but by then it was too little too late to win over those that were already understandably turned off by a show that never seemed to have much of a reason to exist in the first place. Number 15, Marvel's Runaways. I did not know this had 3 seasons.
Yeah. Did I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw them all. Dang, what happened?
Well, I guess that speaks for itself how forgettable it was.
Yeah.
I liked the first 3 episodes of the series, but then after that, I never went back to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this one was really interesting stuff. It's just, I guess it was just the plot that just kind of didn't really grab my attention. Because, I love the idea of some of these characters. Like, one of them, he's really good with machines.
Right.
And the one had, like, kind of extraterrestrial powers. One had magic. One had a dinosaur as a pet that can communicate with her. Like, just all of that was super fucking interesting. I just didn't really care much about the characters. The only, like, one interesting episode was a crossover between that and Cloak and Dagger.
Speaking of which, number 14, Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
How was this show? This had 2 seasons.
Yeah, this one was better than Runaways for sure. I liked their investigation as to how they got these powers, which led to some family members of theirs dying and all that. I like the 2 characters' dynamics, both kind of like just kind of fucked up situations, but always trying to deal with it together. Second season villain was pretty fucking intense.
Interesting.
About this guy who he, like, I guess absorbs the emotions of others to kind of like to kind of like heal himself, because he has this, like, I don't know, I think it was like a ringing noise in his head or something, but like he takes away everything until like there's not even hope left in them. And then one way to do that was running a sex trafficking business. And so he takes the emotions of the girls who are like, who will eventually like not believe they'll be rescued and are stuck in their situation forever. And so like it was fucking intense. Damn. Like the bad guy. Yeah, and then they just brought out some cool interesting stuff of like magic and voodoo and all that.
So interesting ideas.
Yeah. Again, I think for a lot of these, it's just going to be a lot of interesting ideas.
Do you think Cloak and Dagger or Runaways would have been worth for Disney Plus to say to Marvel, I don't care, make these MCU, but we need more shows, and this has some kind of an audience. We're not going to raise the budget all that much. I'm not sure they needed to raise the budget all that much. But what do you think it would have behooved them to say, we want to keep these shows running? Would it have been worth having more seasons of these shows?
I would think so. I mean, depending on who's working on them, if they really worked on the scripts, I don't know, if maybe get better writers
right
or something. But I mean, I think if it was seen by the end, I mean, there was like, I think there were MCU references in the shows. I don't remember. But like, if Kevin Feige took a good look at these shows and actually tried to make some improvements from them, I think it could have worked. Although actually Runaways, I think it did end like at a good note. So I don't think you could do much for
Plus
an extra
3
season.
seasons is a good amount for a show.
Yeah, it's a good amount. I feel like Cloak and Dagger, you can do a lot more.
Right.
Especially because I actually really enjoyed the actors in them. I wouldn't want them replaced if they ever like
do them again. Yeah.
But I mean, these ones, I would be okay if they do what might happen with Daredevil, where it's like, it's the Daredevil from the Netflix shows. We're just not going to make any references to the Netflix shows. That I would be okay, especially because, again, it wasn't that popular. There were some problems with it.
But just keep the same cast.
Yeah.
The same cast. It's interesting. What's different with in the case of when I mentioned should Disney Plus have continued Runaways or Cloak and Dagger is they're able to do that, and they don't have to jump to the hoops of it through like the Netflix shows, because the Netflix shows are owned by Netflix until a certain window, and then they can get those characters back. So with Cloak and Dagger, they could have just as easily done a season 3 for Disney Plus, which you'd think that for a service that really needs content, they would be like, yeah, we're doing this. But no. Number 13, Marvel's Defenders. The Defenders was Netflix's attempt at an Avengers-style crossover, so its success, like the Avengers, hinged heavily on the interplay among its 4 central heroes. Thankfully, it mostly nailed that part. But where the Defenders succeeded in characterization, it unfortunately failed elsewhere. The action scenes, while well choreographed, suffered from a lack of variety. Even worse was the show's bland plot, The Hand, a mysterious shadow organization led by Sigourney Weaver, and is trying to unearth an ancient dragon bones under New York. Yeah, I'd say this is mostly where it needs to be on this list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I mostly just like the character interactions.
That was
I
it.
didn't care much about the plot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 12, The Punisher. I only saw, I think, season 1.
Same.
And I think season 1 was good.
Yeah.
But I didn't care to come back for more.
Mm-hmm.
Number 13, they included Marvel's MODOK, the Kevin Smith series on Hulu.
Mm.
Did you ever see this one?
I never saw it. No.
Didn't care to. At number 10, Marvel's What If. Yeah. How do you feel about this show? Now, a little bit removed from it.
I mean, it was cool. I like the what if scenarios. They can't really go too big or else they're just gonna run out of ideas. You really gotta just change minor stuff on them. But I like that it all culminated to something bigger. I think it'd be interesting if they keep doing that, every season, just so there's actually a big overarching plot in a way.
Right.
So, yeah, it was enjoyable.
All right, number 9. This one I have, of course, you can imagine I don't agree with, but Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. At number 9, they say here S.H.I.E.L.D. went from being a can't-miss juggernaut to the ignored stepchild of the MCU in less time than it took for viewers to watch the first half of season 1 and think, wait, this kind of sucks. Again, I understand where people came from about that first half season, but, having watched it so many times again and again, I really like season 1. Although, yeah, the basic premise in the basic premise in which an elite S.H.I.E.L.D. team took on metahuman threats and technological MacGuffins may have been solid, but as it turns out, basing the entire first year of your show on a secret you're not allowed to reveal until almost the very end makes for underwhelming television. Luckily, the show earned a second season and soon fashioned itself into one of the most reliably entertaining superhero shows. Its scrappy underdog status ended up working to its benefit, since being a B-level concern in the A-list MCU meant more creative freedom. By the end of 7 seasons, the team had defeated more than supervillains. They had overcome dim expectations. Which, yeah, sure. But here's my thing. Personally, I'm gonna be taking a contrarian point of view now. I don't think I definitely think the first half of season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the weakest they ever were, and for a starting off point, you don't want it to be that way, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't garbage. It wasn't trash, and it really wasn't all that bad. I think the problem with that first half was it wasn't the show people wanted it to be. I think the problem is they thought Marvel being on television, they were going to be able to afford themselves to actually have some superheroes on there. I think they wanted a superhero show. And this did, in later years, become kind of a superhero show. But this was kind of a show based on normal people. with no powers. They're just agents and an agency. And for the first half, it was kind of a procedural, like a CSI or something, just in the Marvel Universe. And it was a week-to-week show. It was very episodic. There wasn't much of a focus on like a serialized element until like halfway through. And I found the dynamic of the cast to be genuinely enjoyable. But for a lot of people, I want to say people convinced themselves that it was awful. But they probably won't be honest with like what's awful about it. And what was awful about it was what they wanted out of the show, which they now have with all these new Disney Plus shows that have those connections. You see how Hawkeye opened with the Battle of New York. You see how in WandaVision had a whole episode where it started off with the events of the snap or the blip, if you want to say. That's the stuff they wanted. They also wanted people in costumes, which at the time when S.H.I.E.L.D. debuted in 2013, you had that stuff that was blossoming over at the CW. And you just couldn't help but compare DC and Marvel on TV. So I think all of those things played a factor. But I'm not certainly saying that they were perfect or they were like great out of the gate. But I think it's a little unfair that, we're looking at that first half of the season as garbage when I don't think it is. But yeah. For me, this would be higher on this list, clearly. I'm not even going to lie. This would be number 1 on the list. But why am I even saying that? Everybody knows that. At number 8, Legion.
What was that one?
That one was the one with Dan Stevens, right? Dan Stevens. And it's a key appeal of Noah Hawley's FX head trip Legion that you wouldn't even know it was a Marvel show for a large chunk of its first episode. By the time it was okay, hold on. Let's see. Like WandaVision, Legion was as interested or more in playing with the TV formalism as it was trying to sell a superhero story. Through Hawley's effort, I'm sorry, I keep tripping over these words. This page is just jumping left and right. I need a AV Club, get on this. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to read an article without you like having to reload every other fucking second. Though Hawley's effort was far less focused and far messier than the Disney Plus hit, but the sheer boldness of Legion's ambitions ensured that there's never been much like it on television. It was with Dan Stevens. It was a show called Legion. It was an X-Men, I think, related show, wasn't it? Or something that was a cue to the X-Men?
Yeah, I remember now. I never finished the show. I only watched the first season. But I mean, that first one was so fucking great. I mean, it's definitely worth the watch for that first season. I don't know about the rest, but yeah.
Number 7, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's pretty fair. This is interesting. Marvel's Luke Cage at number 6. I'm not sure about that. Only because Luke Cage had a strong first half of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of, I don't say it was terrible, but it kind of like fell off at the end of season 1. I never saw season 2.
I watched season 2. I was kind of bored of the plot. Like, the only thing that was like super fucking interesting was this one actress had this scene, like, just kind of explaining her backstory, and like, she fucking sold it on that part.
Right.
But that was really like the only really big interesting part of the second season. So
yeah,
I wouldn't put it higher than Falcon.
Number 5 is Agent Carter. This is difficult because I like Agent Carter, and I think reorganizing this list, it would either be 6 or 7, maybe even 5, I think. But Agent Carter is very good. And it sucks that it didn't get a chance to finish its story. But yeah, there's that. Number 4, Jessica Jones. This one's also complicated because based on its first season alone, yes. I didn't see anything else. But from what I hear, they weren't as good as season 1.
Yeah. Second was really disappointing for me. Third was pretty good, but it was just the best friend character that like
Trish.
Yeah, I did not like her character at all. She was she was mean, and I didn't like any of the decisions that she was making. And so it just kind of got annoying.
Yes, see, by that metric, you'd think that maybe like, because the seasons, like season 1 is so great, but like because of it kind of goes on a downward trajectory. Like with Agent Carter, I would say like their seasons are evenly matched, I'd say. But then again, it's been a long time since I've seen Agent Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Like since 2016, so yeah. Number 3, Daredevil. Number 2, Loki. And number 1, WandaVision. I'm not necessarily opposed with WandaVision being number 1. In fact, I would put it as my number 2. We all know what my number 1 would be, but moving aside that question, the idea that Loki trumps Daredevil is kind of...
No. You know, I mean, I'm sure people can make an argument for WandaVision and Daredevil top spots. But nah, honestly, I wouldn't put even Loki beneath Falcon and Winter Soldier, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think Loki would be my top 5 by no means.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if anything, I would put Loki behind... Yeah, all of those, like, behind S.H.I.E.L.D., WandaVision, Agent Carter, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I would put it behind. I don't know, maybe people are just, like, really hot on that show. But, like, I don't know. I didn't like the ending of it. But there's that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to this. Hawkeye episode 3, Echoes. We'll start off with our initial impressions of the episode, and then we'll get into all of those really good spoilers. Goddamn, now we're in. Okay, there it is. I really, really liked episode 3. I was much more engaged with it. Meanwhile, of course, I was kind of in pain at the same time. But the fact that I was so engaged with the episode, I think speaks highly about it. Because I saw it like midnight. Yeah, midnight on Wednesday. Yeah, I like strong opening, I would say, with establishing who the character of Echo is. Some juicy stuff about there too, which we'll get into. Yeah. And yeah, I especially really took a liking to the chase sequence, the big set piece of the episode. That was a lot of fun. I really, really like that. I'm loving even more so the dynamic between Kate and Clint. Love those two as a team. I'm really excited to see where this goes. But those two have a great rapport with each other. It's even at some point Hawkeye loses his hearing aid, and that also adds to the whole chase sequence as well. And even in other moments where you're never really sure if he can hear anything or not, which makes it obviously a lot more fun. He had a really great, I would say, scene while Clint is trying to have a conversation with his son Nathaniel, but he can't hear. So, he has Kate kind of like write down what Nathaniel is saying, and I thought that was pretty emotionally resonant. And yeah, there's a great scene in the diner between those two. And I kind of hated that it ended so quickly. I was kind of like, wait, that's it? They left you on a great cliffhanger, but I'm like, ooh, why'd you gotta stop there? This was so good. This was so good. I wanted more of this. I'm sorry. This was a really good episode. I'm really into this. And I guess we only have 3 episodes left. That's interesting. What do you think about this episode, David?
No, yeah, I agree with everything. very good episode, especially between the Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. Again, I think last episode I said that they're just kind of like keep building up their relationship. Hopefully it culminates in something great. And then strong opening to this episode. Yeah, I really, from that opening, I really started to like Echo.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting character. And hopefully it leads to something like intense towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the action is great, especially for this episode. The dynamic was great. And just it ended way too soon.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I was caught off guard. I was like, what? That's it?
Yeah, so it was leading up to it, and I went, oh, don't tell me it's gonna end right now. And then the credits roll, and I'm like,
damn.
Actually, I don't know. This is probably gonna be my one complaint, probably for the whole series, but does Hawkeye have a theme in this show? Like, has it just been Christmas music playing, or like radio music playing in the background?
If there was a theme, I haven't picked up on it. And as far as the score is concerned, it has basically been relegated to Christmas music, which I guess like in the moment, I thought was kind of funny. You know, some of the choices they made, especially with there's a scene where they crash into Christmas trees. So I like that. They did, and they've been, doing like the score has been composed of a lot of Christmas music over the couple of episodes. But maybe they leaned into it way too hard because it's seemingly come at the expense of a theme for Clint or Kate, because I haven't picked up on one.
Yeah, same. I was just wondering that. I think it might have been during one of the action scenes where it's just they're playing Christmas music. And I'm kind of like, does Hawkeye have a theme at all? Like from the movies or the show? And if not, like, what the fuck? Yeah, and I mean, I don't mind the Christmas music. It's fun. It is Christmas time, so like it fits with the show and all that. It's just this just kind of wasted potential in not giving him a theme, or at least one for Kate, at least towards the end. Yeah,
like he never had a theme in any of the movies. The other Avengers definitely did, but even then they weren't really used. I know that the Hulk had a theme in his own movie that never came back. Iron Man had a theme in all three of his movies, which were kind of different, but they never really came back as motifs. Thor had, I think, 2 different themes, and they rarely, if ever, came back. The only one, or Natasha had a theme that was written by Alan Silvestri in the Avengers movie, and it briefly came back as a motif in Avengers Endgame. The same thing, Alan Silvestri's Captain America theme did come back in Avengers Endgame. And then Henry Jackman, I think, wrote new themes for Natasha, but that was never reused. And Captain America, which was never reused. So it's pretty strange. All this, the main constant has been the Avengers theme. Yeah, so that's been an issue. But to my knowledge, Hawkeye never had a theme, which I think kind of tells you how kind of insignificant. Oh, I don't know. That sounds harsh, but like that should tell you how he's been treated, or how people saw him in these movies.
Mm-hmm. No,
even in the Age of Ultron, I don't think there was even a theme, and that was, I think, the most spotlight he got.
Yeah, I don't remember anything playing.
Yeah,
but I mean, hopefully, maybe they'll like surprise us, and like at the end, I'm sure there's gonna be a moment where they're both Hawkeye and Kay are working together, and then you're gonna get some theme, and it'll be cool. But I don't know.
I mean, I guess you can make the argument that by extension of him being one of the original Avengers, that can count as his theme, because he noticed in the beginning of the show in episode 1, they did use that, a variation of that, when he's, in the Battle of New York, the flashback in 2012. But I noticed Peter was annoyed by it, and I gotta ask you, do you think at this point Marvel is really milking that Avengers theme and putting it in places where it doesn't really belong? Like, remember how it played at the end of Black Widow? I'm gonna get on a Quinjet. Bum bum ba-dum. Or at the end of Captain Marvel, where like Nick Fury and Coulson are like the Avengers Initiative and bum bum ba-dum. Like, it seems a bit forced. Like, I know what you're teasing, but it's like, here's the problem with me. Where it becomes a problem is you bring in a very well-known theme, but it kind of hurts you because in both of those movies, which would be Black Widow and Captain Marvel, they didn't have memorable scores. So you bringing in a memorable theme here only highlights, oh, they played music in this movie.
Okay, with that, yeah, I guess it just seems a bit overplayed in a way. I mean, for those specific things that you mentioned, I don't mind it just because, you know, it's supposed to lead up to an Avengers event.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's fine. But, I mean, I guess for the scene for Hawkeye, yeah, I don't think they should have done a variant of the Avengers theme. That should have been his.
Yeah.
You know? So, I don't know. I don't know about overplayed, but Hawkeye needs his own theme.
Okay, now, let's go ahead and talk about the episode as it happened in sequence. David, go ahead and start us off. Where do we start off this week?
We start off with Echo. She's like, I don't know, middle school, elementary, I don't know, child. And, you know, she's just looking around. Obviously, she's deaf, so she kind of seems nervous in class. She's trying to follow the teacher, but instead she just goes on her own. You see that she does that on her own. I guess showing pretty smart, or at least fast learner. And then it cuts to her with her dad. And just kind of wishing she would go to a deaf school, but the dad's kind of like, no, you know, you'll do fine in both in this school. Just kind of have to learn to be around the people, just watch them, which that led to her taking these. I mean, that didn't lead to her taking karate classes. It cut to her taking karate classes, but she was taking in what her dad said, basically just watch them. And so she sees this one kid fight, does a couple steps. Then when she goes up against him, she remembered what he did and knocked him down. That was just her as a kid. But during that karate session, I guess, you see that she only has one leg. She has a prosthetic on one.
That came as a surprise when I saw that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. And it was actually used pretty cool later on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to it. But then, yeah, it just kind of cuts to her. She's taking boxing lessons and she's doing the same thing, watching the guy, looking at his movements, and it was able to knock him down. So she trained her whole life, I guess, too, kind of like Kate. And then cuts to, I guess, some, what was it, like some auto shop, something like that? I don't know, some warehouse, I guess.
Basically the tracksuit gang's like headquarters.
Yeah, their headquarters. And she notices through the window that someone's killing the tracksuit gang, just everyone slaughtering them. And it's Ronin. Good guess that this was during the snap, and Hawkeye killed the entire gang, including her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so that basically set up some motivation for the rest of this episode, that she wants to look for him. And so that's why the tracksuit gang went after Kate. It's rumors of him coming back. They decided to track her down. So yeah, then it cuts to where we left off. Kate and Hawkeye in the, like, what is it? Those machine thingies for kids.
Yeah, the horses.
The horses, whatever. And they're actually like riding them and all that, just to track the game, making fun of them. That was pretty funny. And then Kate kind of goes to Hawkeye and she goes, you would have been lost without me, okay? Like, I was trying to help. And he's like, I was about to, like, get them off your back before you came in, but no, that's not gonna happen. But yeah, Echo comes in. She's talking to Hawkeye. She notices that he has a hearing aid and tries to do sign with him, but he's just kind of like, I'm not a pro at that yet. So someone translates, and so he explains to her Ronan's dead. Black Widow killed him, and she's kind of like, bullshit. The woman that killed him she's also dead too. And it's like, how do you know this? And he's like, I was there. But yeah, sad moment for Clint. Just trying to leave it all behind. Doesn't want anyone to know, but eventually he's gonna bite him in the ass. I'm very curious what Kate's gonna think when that's revealed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then she goes up to Kate. Well, Hawkeye tried explaining to Echo, like, hey, she found the suit, put it on, didn't know what it was about, didn't know what the suit was, so just leave her alone. But Echo goes up to Kate, tells her, ask her like how she got the suit and all that. I can't remember what Kate was trying to explain, but basically she was kind of like playing it off cool, trying to be funny about it. But then Echo just tried to like chokes her out.
Yeah, that was pretty intense too.
Yeah, and then luckily one of her, I guess her second in command, pulls her off, and Kate gets scared. She starts to almost freak out a bit, and I like this moment where Hawkeye's kind of like, "Hey, like no time to be scared right now. Get that overconfidence of yours to the surface. That crazy overconfidence that you have." I just like that. It's kind of it making fun of her, kind of like going, why are you like this? In a way. He manages to escape, and then that's where this whole action scene starts for like, I don't know how long. I feel like it was like half the episode.
Yeah. So we can stop there real quick. There's some things we want to bring back up, or acknowledge as we kind of went over all of that. That moment you just said about, basically Clint almost coaching Kate to like get that crazy overconfidence you have to back up, very much reminded me of his moment with Wanda in Age of Ultron. He's very good at that.
Yeah.
Interesting, I think what's revealed in the hearing aid is, at least for me, it wasn't my impression that Clint really depended on that, but apparently he does, because the minute that thing gets taken out, he can't really hear much of anything. That is interesting. Also sad, but interesting. I didn't know that. And then it comes into play later on in the episode. Of course, Echo pretty fucked up to smash it, but okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and she said something pretty interesting where she was like, "You're relying too much on machines." That, and he's just like, "Well, I mean, I'm only using 2 sticks and string as a weapon, so I kind of need technology." But she was mentioning the hearing aid,
right? Being
like, you should learn how to use it without it, which I hope comes back. Maybe somehow using it. I don't know.
So going back into Echo and her whole thing, I really did like the few moments we were able to see it, her dynamic, or the connection she had with her father. And I'm not sure if you noticed. So the father is played by Zahn McClarnon, and he was actually a Crow in Doctor Sleep. If you remember that, he was the Crow, the second, basically in command, with Rose the Hat. So, yeah, he was here, and he played a kind of a warm and loving father, even though, of course, he was in a low street criminal, kind of like very, very street level, criminal organization.
Yeah, he was. I think he was also in Reservation Dogs, by the way.
Oh, was he? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he was. I think it might have been him playing a cop, which I really liked his character.
Interesting. And yeah, we see her in school, and it's interesting just to see her go through all of that and her being really far more capable and being encouraged of that by her father. We see her, I guess there were karate lessons of some sort. And, I think her father has to leave and be somewhere else, but that her uncle, quote unquote, would be there to pick her up. And apparently the uncle was there. We see kind of a glimpse of him. We see a very big man in a large black suit. We see his hand with long sleeve cuffs and laugh, and that's it. And I was wondering if they were really going to show all of him, but they weren't. And I feel like it seems to me you can't get any more confirmation than that was Wilson Fisk. That was Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk, because that laugh was his laugh. That sounded exactly like him. That looked like him. I think that kind of speaks to also how iconic his character has become. Like, we can tell that that's him just by looking at the suit and the cuffs on his hand. So I think it would be really hilarious if it wasn't Wilson Fisk, if it was somebody else. But it seems like that's what it is, because he also keep talking about later on in the episode, which we haven't talked about just yet, but there are interactions with Echo and some of her enforcers about, her uncle not liking this, or her uncle this, or her uncle that. And it would seem to suggest that Wilson Fisk is back, guys. That was a really, really fun moment. I was like, kind of exciting too. Like, are they going to show him? They're going to show him? No, not yet. Damn. But that's him.
Tease him out to the end. And they do talk about it multiple, just like I think 2 more times.
Yeah.
Afterwards. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. There was a theory put out there, and I'm really curious to see what it is. Although, what we see there is Ronan kill Echo's father.
Mm-hmm.
And from what we understand, the tracksuit gang, they're not like Wilson Fisk's main enforcers, correct? Like, they're like low level, it seemed like. Mm-hmm. And there was an argument being made by somebody that they were probably way too street level for Ronan himself to murder viciously. I don't know if that's entirely true, considering what we've seen so far. But because of that, I don't know if they're even going to go with this. But the suggestion on this person was that maybe that person wasn't Clint in the Ronin suit when he killed all of those people. And we also don't even know how recent this was. Does it say how recent it was?
Like between him killing the Jackson gang and now?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I want to take a guess. It was probably in the beginnings of his, I don't know, what's it called? The slaughtering?
Probably, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just guessing because, if you're, he's starting from the bottom, trying to get as much info as he can. Then he went all the way up to the Yakuza.
Yeah.
So I would say it's probably early beginnings.
Yeah. I'm going to then assume Wilson Fisk was snapped. Because how would Wilson Fisk still be alive? Mm-hmm. If Ronan was basically killing everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can just play it off as like, he's that smart.
Or he was in prison.
Or in prison. Yeah. That would be that too.
That's interesting right there. But yeah, that to me though, I don't know if I agree with that theory that it was somebody else in the run-in too. I feel that was very clearly Clint. Unless something else comes to light. But like, I don't know how it could be anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but yeah. Echo comes in. She introduces herself. Pretty good introduction for this character. Really curious to see what comes next. So they had a not as difficult of a time I would think of them being able to get away, but Clint, was able to detach himself. He got his bow and arrow, and then he was able to help get Kate out of it. And yeah, they were pretty formidable for just being two people able to get away. I love how there was this really nice car that Clint refused to break into because it's just too nice to hit.
Yeah,
didn't matter much anyway later on in the episode. But yeah, they hotwire it, and now we have this great chase, right?
Yeah. So Hawkeye was deaf the whole time, so he there was a lot of sort of miscommunication between the two, but it landed some really funny stuff. So as they were driving, Kate goes out the window, trying to like sit on the door, shoot the guys and everything, but it was kind of an uncomfortable position. And then she was going, and she goes, I think we should like turn the car around and like face them. And I can't remember what he was saying, but something about the arrows. But then like later on he says, oh, I think we should turn the car around. And she's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. It's like, we're communicating, cool. But like it still wasn't working till later on. But yeah, and then they just got fun with the arrows and all that. He had like a putty arrow, suction cup.
Yeah, those were fun, weren't they?
And then she was all, and I like her comments about it too. It's like, why do you have Play-Doh arrow? Like, what the fuck does that do? And she shoots one that explodes, and she's like, there's more arrows dangerous than that one? Like, what the heck? And then
we never really saw him have those in the movies, did we?
No, it was mostly just there was a lot of exploding arrows, right. Some with like some wires and all that, like what is it, like grappling hook arrow,
yes,
but nothing of like that fun of an extent, which makes sense because he's trying to go for kills, not for like incapacitating, I guess, monsters. So it makes sense that we don't see those kind of arrows in the movies. But yeah, the camera work was really cool. I think you could tell there was some green screen and probably the whole car chase, but I really like that they kind of made an effort to make it look like one shot for a lot of the time, which is really fun. And then yeah, they keep going. They make it to a bridge. They stop Echo's car, which is like the nice car that he didn't want to steal. And they were kind of stuck between them. And the coolest part was she gets like sorry. So before that, he tries getting a certain arrow from a car. So he asked Kate to cover him, and she only had like this USB trick arrow. She's just like, why? What the heck is this for? Like, why would you need it? And all that.
I think that was in What If, actually.
The USB one. Oh yeah.
For Arnim Zola.
I forgot. Yeah. No, I'm sure that we saw. What kind of?
In Avengers. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. So I know it's useful. It's just funny. It's just kind of like, why
a USB arrow. That's hilarious. Yeah.
And she was it was funny. Like she was like, you don't want to know what this arrow does, and she shoots it. It hits one, and I love this one guy like starts screaming like, oh no! I was like, oh wait, no. Did nothing. Okay. I just laughed so much. It was great. But yeah, finally he gets an arrow though, and he tells her, aim
high.
Yeah, aim high for a truck. And I love what they were doing. You had an arrow. It was like bluish and all that. I thought it was gonna be a bomb, but then finally they like changed the focus on it, and you see him right on the arrow, and I was like, no fucking way.
Yes.
That's awesome. It's so, yeah.
You know what's going to happen when you see that.
So basically it was just to grow the arrow, which I love the idea though, that he was kind of like, hey, Ant-Man, I think we can make some cool stuff with this. Like, let's work together. Come on. Either Ant-Man or Hank Pym, who knows?
Does that mean that Pym like is back as a company?
I'm
only asking because that never really was addressed. I guess was it Pym Industries or whatever it's called?
Yeah. I mean, it could be back. It could also just be Hank Pym being like, "This is mine. I'm going to label it."
Oh, okay.
It's like, so people will know. You know, it's like, don't take credit for this. But I mean, it could be back. Who knows?
That was awesome to see. It's like, whoa, as it enlarged, and then like, yeah, it's like, holy shit! You saw the tracksuit again. Like, oh fuck, we got to back away. That was fun. That was fun to see. And then, of course, they grapple hook their way on, and they get on the subway. Yeah,
and then it was the suction cup arrow that saved them to stay on the train. She's like, "Oh, okay, now I see. Cool, all right." And then I think that was the end of it. I think they just went home. Oh no, they were on the train, and she was like, "Oh, I should walk the dog, huh? He's been home all day." And then, like 5 seconds later, you should walk the dog. Oh no, he goes, you know, I guess you kind of earned it.
You're a great archer. You're one of the best archers. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, thanks. And then he goes, we should walk the dog though. He's been in the house all day. So it's just kind of funny that, like, you know, I think they're just kind of showing that there's similarities between the two.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I knew that from the casting. Both of them, I knew, like, again, they have very similar comedic timings.
Yeah.
Their acting. I'm noticing that from past movies. But also, though, like, if you watch the Avengers movies, he was pretty sarcastic. He was always kind of like the one throwing jokes every once in a while. So, yeah, it's just kind of cool showing that without them knowing, they do have a lot of similarities, personality-wise, I guess.
Yeah, that was a funny sequence. Of course, in the whole thing, and Clint can't really hear her, so it's like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And what happens next?
I think it's just them back at her aunt's place.
Yeah.
You know, she walked the dog and everything. He gets a phone call, and thought it was from his wife, trying to tell her, like, hey, can we text and all that? But turns out it was his youngest son. And Kate was just trying to translate for them. The kid woke up early. He was bored, so he called him and everything. And it was sweet because, you know, it's the little kid talking to him, and I kind of liked their conversation. But it was also kind of sad because, you know, he's missing out on some stuff. Doesn't know he was gonna make it back, and yeah, it's just, again, good way to, like, just keep motivating us to hope for him. He gets this job done soon.
Yeah, that was a really sweet moment, honestly. Probably one of the most, if not the most, moving moment of the episode. It was kind of a great scene for Jeremy Renner to have, especially. It gives us a glimpse as to, like, what more these actors can do when they're given the chance to be able to explore that. And also great for Kate as well. As you saw kind of the empathy on her face with what, you know, Clint is going through in this situation. But it also made sense why earlier on, like, I guess, like, what at some point, maybe Hawkeye is going to lose his hearing, maybe? It seems like, because, and you remember in the first or second episode, they were looking like Nathaniel was practicing sign language, as you saw, right? Like, they were, I love you, Dad. They were signing, and so he's learning that as well. So then they may be preparing for that eventuality.
Yeah.
Which is sad. Yeah.
And then afterwards, they went to this old lady who can apparently fix his hearing aid, which, you know, good, cool. Just quick little scene. and then they were at a restaurant eating, and Kate's trying to like, she's talking to Hawkeye, kind of being like, "This is awesome. Like, I thought we had like a really good dynamic going on, and everything." It's just like I knew it was meant for this. Like, as soon as I knew I was trying to save you, like I was meant to do this kind of thing. And then he puts on his hearing aid, and she's just like, "You didn't have it on this whole time?"
That was so funny.
Yeah.
He just fucking turned it off. That was so funny.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, she tells him again, like, she was meant for this, but he tries telling her, like, "Hey, it's not all fun and games. Some serious shit happens. Takes a toll. Sacrifices, takes a toll." And she's just like, "But we get cool costumes, though."
I don't, he said.
Yeah. It's just funny. And then she tries to like convince him, like, "What if you wear something like this?" And it was basically the comic accurate costume. You know, give him what was it? Put an H on his head, give him wings for like a hawk.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "No, I don't wear that." Which is, it's funny because if you've seen the promo pictures, it's gonna happen somehow.
Somehow there'll be a new suit he'll get, and it's interesting the way that I don't know if this was Kevin Feige or if this was the spirit of Kevin Feige, going through Clint Barton, but Clint's reasoning for why he didn't have a fancy costume really does make sense in the history of this universe, where like he wasn't an Avenger first, he was a SHIELD agent. Mm-hmm. And his role was to blend in, to be a spy. And so a flashy costume was never really going to do it.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's like he never really, I think, saw himself as a superhero. And maybe even with the Avengers still.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was a cool explanation as to why he didn't. And it totally makes sense. But I'm kind of excited to see like what convinces him to put on the flashy suit. Yeah, or she's just kind of like, "Here, this will protect you." And
I love how much of a fangirl she is, though. Like, drawing up that costume and trying to work on his marketing and everything. It does make me wonder, though. I know we're going to see Kate Bishop come back, but if this is going to get a season 2, or if we're going to see Clint Barton ever again, that's also an interesting question after the show's over.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm curious about. I don't know.
Because why give him this costume if he's going to be the swan song?
Yeah. I mean, more than anything, if they do make a Young Avengers, I feel like we would probably see him in that. Because I think for sure he'll be the one to like watch over them, since he's the one that's kind of like training. I think he's like the only one that's training someone, basically. The only other one was Iron Man, but he's dead. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like more than anything, he'll probably come back for a Young Avengers or an Avengers movie.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Great scene at the diner, though. They also take the time to finally name the dog Pizza Dog.
Yeah, it was funny because like she said it, and then like a smile happens with the dog, and it was cool. It's nice. I like the dog. And then what happens after? I think, they're driving. She explains to him that she's worried about her mom, that she thinks her new boyfriend might be a murderer and all that. And she's like trying to give him the evidence, but he's just kind of like, this isn't evidence. Like, you got nothing really. So she convinced him to go to her mom's place, check the security to get information on Echo and the tracksuit gang, but also get some kind of information about her mom's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. I can't remember what they found though. Like, oh, actually, I skipped over a scene. Echo and the gang leave their headquarters where they were holding Hawkeye, and her second in command was kind of like, "Hey, you're kind of taking this a bit overboard. Your dad wouldn't do something like this." But she's kind of like, I'm doing this for my dad, basically. And I think that's her. And somehow that led to them bringing up their her uncle. I can't remember what they said though.
Yeah.
And then I know at some point the Kate asks Hawkeye like what he does know about the Tracksuit Gang, and he's just kind of like, I mean, I know about Echo, who her uncle is, and she's like, oh, you don't want to mess with him.
Yeah.
Like more than anything. Which another hint. Wilson Fisk. And I forgot to mention too, in the fighting scene in the warehouse, Hawkeye and Echo. Again, you see like she uses her legs a lot.
Yeah.
While fighting, she like kind of like likes to use her prosthetic leg as kind of just get like an extra hard kick towards others, and then she also used it as a defense. I think Hawkeye was about to hit it with the bow, and she just like raises her leg and blocks the hit, which is, I think that was really, really interesting. But yeah, and so they just make it to her mom's penthouse. He's kind of like, your mom works in security, and he knows it's like the big house, and he's just kind of like, dang, I was in the wrong business.
That was funny.
Jealous. Yeah. They get information. I can't remember what it was. I think it was about her Echo's second in command, maybe. But Clint hears something. He walks around, and that's when the mom's boyfriend, he has the Ronin sword towards Clint's neck, and ask him what the heck he's doing here, and then episode ends. But yeah, I feel like this might be like our shortest explanation of an episode. But it was mostly just little character stuff happening between the two.
Yeah,
honestly.
there wasn't much to say, but what was there was pretty fun and good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go ahead.
It's just like I mentioned before. There's not really much of a plot. It was just get the suit back, but now it just keeps kind of getting bigger and bigger. So, yeah, I mean, again, I really am liking the character stuff between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting cliffhanger. I love how Clint was like sensing something, or he sensed someone, or maybe I think that's what it was, and so he went. And then the retractable Ronin sword. I wonder, though, what do you think is really happening with Armand? What do you think we're going to be revealed with him next week? The stepdad.
I'm sorry, but who?
Armand, yeah. He's not the stepdad yet, but the would-be stepdad.
I don't know. I feel like they're just going to play it off as a joke and be like, Kate's going to come up and be like, whoa, it's Hawkeye. Don't worry about him. Because I know there's going to be a scene where Hawkeye, Kate, and Kate's mom are going to be like talking together. So it's good. I don't think it's going to, that scene at the end is not really going to lead to anything actiony or intense. It's going to be played off as a joke, which is fine. But I mean, I hope we get some reveal about the boyfriend, just because, I mean, we already know who Echo is. We already know the motivation on her and what the Tracksuit Gang is going to do. So I think we just need more info on the boyfriend. Hopefully it'll lead to something bigger. I still don't know what, though. Like, we don't know why they wanted the watch, why they were even at that auction. I mean, the boyfriend, so I don't know.
Yeah. And that's about it, guys. I'm not sure what else we can say. Good episode, great cliffhanger, and it left us wanting more, that's for sure. And that's all really what we can say at this point. Any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We'll be back next time with episode 4 of Hawkeye, and then of course more stuff to come here on Red Spotlight. Stay under Red Spotlight. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.